Well, happy Thursday morning, everyone, and welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. I am taking a look at the 23 arguments that were offered by Dr. David Hester in our formal debate held July the 14th and the 15th, 2016, here in Ardmore, Oklahoma at our Preterist Pilgrim Weekend. And by the way, thank you so much for the wonderful comments, all of the interaction on YouTube and Facebook and what have you, and especially the private comments that I've been hearing from so many of you. I truly appreciate that you take the time to watch the videos. Well, one of Dr. David Hester's arguments that he offered under his argument number 11, he actually made 2 or 3 different arguments under argument number 11, but one of his arguments was, well, if Jesus came in AD 70, then he is no longer our high priest. Now, if you've watched the debate, you know that Dr. Hester gave absolutely not one word of exegetical support for the claim. He just simply made the assertion. Well, look, folks, as I pointed out in the debate, I can make all the assertions that I want to, but assertions do not prove one single thing. Now, what you need to know, as I'm sure you do, is that lying behind his bold assertion is the presuppositional concept, the claim, again, unproven, is that when Paul said he must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet, when the last enemy is put under his feet, then shall he deliver the kingdom to the Father. Now, in the churches of Christ, of which Dr. David Hester is a member, it is believed that what that passage teaches is that at the second coming, Christ surrenders the throne to the Father. He gives the kingdom over to the Father. Since Christ would be both king and priest on his throne, Zechariah 6:13, then since he surrenders, in this view, the throne to the Father, that must mean he ceases to be high priest. Well, once again, let me point out to you, go back and watch the debate. Dr. Hester did not go to 1 Corinthians 15. He did not go to Psalms 110, which is the background for "Sit at my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool." He did not do even one single word of exegesis. He just assumed that the audience would take his word for the idea that at his coming, Christ surrenders the throne. That at his coming, he is no longer high priest. But let's look closer at that, shall we? The writer of Hebrews says that the Old Covenant priests were many. And this is in chapter 5. There were many high priests under the old law. Why? Well, because high priests died. But Christ's priesthood is after the power of an endless life. Do you catch that? Christ's priesthood is after the power of an endless life. And in chapter 7, verse 25, it tells us that Christ, quote, ever lives to make intercession, unquote. So for the writer of Hebrews, the priesthood of Christ is an unending priesthood. Now, the Hebrew word olam, thou art a priest forever, the word forever is from olam, does not of itself demand endlessness, all right? That's important to understand. And I'm sure that Dr. Hester might argue, well, see, olam doesn't mean forever without end, so Christ's priesthood would end at his coming. Therefore, if Christ came in AD 70, his priesthood ends. Well, the problem with that is both the Hebrews and the Greeks had a way of expressing endlessness. And one of those ways was to contrast the things that were not endless with the things that are. For instance, in Hebrews chapter 5, those high priests were many because they died. But Christ's priesthood is after the power of an endless, see, they would express it as endlessness of an endless life. Furthermore, he ever lives to make intercession. The Hebrew writer, Hebrews writer, makes it a point of contrasting temporary priesthood with endless priesthood. And thus, Dr. Hester's argument is completely, totally falsified. In the previous installment, the previous video, I pointed out that at his coming, Christ would marry the church, not surrender her, not divorce her, not give her over to the Father. That at his coming, he would sit on his throne, not quit the throne, as William Bell is fond of saying. And as Revelation chapter 11 shows, that at the destruction of Jerusalem, the city where the Lord was slain, verse 8, it says, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdom singular, of our God and of his Christ. And he shall reign forever and forever. Gregory Beale, one of the foremost Greek scholars in the world today, says the Greek term that is used there is the most powerful expression for endlessness in the Greek language. Folks, what we have here is another prime example of David Hester asserting something to be true without giving a syllable of exegesis. And, third point, completely ignoring the biblical testimony about what would happen with Christ and the kingdom at his coming. He would marry the church, ignoring the fact that his priesthood has no end. He also ignored the linguistics of 1 Corinthians 15, which shows that deliver there does not mean surrender, doesn't mean abdicate. It's being used in that text in a way that Dr. Hester is misusing it. All right? Well, again, this completely, totally falsifies Dr. Hester's theology. Thanks so much for joining me for this morning's morning musings. And by the way, let me reiterate that in order to understand the doctrine of the resurrection, which this is all about, you need to get a copy of my book, 70 Weeks Are Determined for the Resurrection. Don't forget, go to privideos.com and look at the resources available. Go to my website, eschatology.org or bibleprophecy.com, and order the book, 70 Weeks Are Determined for the Resurrection. Make a note that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping. Well, look, thanks again for joining me for this morning's Morning Musings. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Lord willing, we'll see you on Monday.